Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. On today's show, we draft the most underwhelming team of Minnesota Vikings. You don't want to miss that. Willie Beavers.
Hey, this is Arif Hassan with Pro Football Network. During the draft, we may discuss the difference between a monster and a jerk-off.
Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. I just can't wait to see which version of Luke Braun shows up today.
And I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings. Me too.
Oh my goodness. That's all I have to say. Let's get into the Minnesota football party.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota football party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Pro Football Network's Arif Hassan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talk's Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota football party. And it starts now.
What's up, everybody? It's the Minnesota football party on a Thursday with the full crew. Myself, Sam Ekstrom, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman, Luke Braun, at Luke Braun NFL, and Arif Hassan of Pro Football Network, at Arif Hassan NFL. On today's show, 3 Vikings to keep, 3 Vikings to cut. Who do we go with? Excited to get into that debate. Plus, is Mike Pettine actually not as bad a choice as you might assume? Plus, the underwhelming Vikings draft coming up, along with Ron Johnson's Thursday appearance. Today's show is presented by our new partner, FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. And you can find Locked On Sports Minnesota in a variety of ways on the Amazon Fire and Roku apps. Get them on your smart TV. Watch us on the big screen. You can also see those videos on YouTube. Subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota. Smash that subscribe button, and we're free and available on your favorite podcast app. Let's begin here, gentlemen. Keep 3, cut 3. I have given you a list of 6 Vikings veterans potentially on the chopping block. They are Harrison Smith, Eric Kendricks, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Danielle Hunter, Za'Darius Smith. You must take cap into account. So if you elect to keep them, you are not assuming a restructure. You must keep them at their number. Who are you keeping? Who are you cutting? I begin with Luke Inman.
I really wish you at least would have put Jordan Hicks in there just to have one easy one. Just have one. They're all so difficult when you look at how much dead cap you're sitting with after just outright cutting the majority of these. Hicks, again, clean, $5.5 million off the books. I think they strategically set up that contract for a clean break this offseason if they wanted to, which I would assume they will. But anyways, I think I'm starting with Cook. I think we talked about it yesterday on the football party. In no way am I saying that running the ball isn't important, but paying your running back $15 million or more, it doesn't always equate to success in the NFL. The 4 teams who are paying the most for their running backs in the NFL didn't make the playoffs. Packers and Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry and the Titans, Nick Chubb and the Browns, Alvin Kamara and the Saints. And I mentioned this as well, 3 1,500-yard rushers this year. None of them made the playoffs either. Josh Jacobs along with Chubb and Henry. So I think it's kind of similar how we always talk about paying a starting quarterback rookie money and what it allows you to do with the rest of the roster. Kind of on a similar, smaller scale, finding a cheap running back that can offer just above average production. That's a huge advantage to building your roster when you weigh out the pros and cons. And I think as much as we all love Dalvin, I think just the production last year, for whatever reason, never came close to the price. So even with the $6 million dead, saving $8 million, rolling with Kenny and Ty, maybe another day 3 rookie. I think that's the biggest no-brainer. Then it gets really difficult, though. Thielen, you save about 6.5. Harry, you save about 8. Za'Darius, you can save about 13.5. Kendricks, I think it's 9. Hunter, tell me if I looked at that wrong. I think you're actually in the negative. The dead cap is $18 million and the base is 13.
A giant restructure last offseason. Yeah.
Okay. So kind of a mute point, right? Because I'm not cutting Hunter anyways. Too good. Got to keep some of these guys. And honestly, no one's seen more of a traditional box safety. Bynum, don't really trust him as a center fielder right now. I'm not cutting Harrison Smith. You got to keep some of these core defensive pieces. Maybe as wild as it sounds, I think Za'Darius Smith, just given the least amount of dead cap on the books, I think it's only $3 million. He's going to be 31 next season, plus seeing him fall off the last second half of the season. On top of that, out of all the positions, when you look at the Vikings, I think edge, you at least have some viable depth to roll with Patrick Jones and DJ Wonnum in a worst case scenario. So maybe as unpopular as it probably is, just for this exercise, I'm going to cut Za'Darius, take the almost 14 extra million. If I really want, there's guys like Arden Key, maybe Marcus Davenport out in free agency for half the price. And then it comes down to, for me, Thielen or Kendricks. Thielen has so much more dead cap, 11.5 million more, just wasted. I just hate all this dead cap. Plus, I think, too, if I were to cut Thielen, I feel like you're almost pigeonholed to draft a receiver early in the draft, which I don't necessarily want to do with such a great cornerback class at the top. The wide receiver free agents, just from a quick glance, aren't great either. Linebacker, even if I cut both Hicks and Kendricks and roll with Asamoah, history shows you might be able to find a serviceable linebacker in the 3rd or 4th round. So Cook, Z, Kendricks saved about 31 million with 3 guys. 2 of those guys are going to be 31 at the start of next season anyways. A tough exercise for sure, Sam, but that gives me a huge chunk of money to dump back into free agency, maybe re-sign Alexander Mattison if I want, re-sign Dalvin Tomlinson, maybe Patrick Peterson, and most importantly, I think, now you got money to extend guys like Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah. Za'Darius seems like the biggest puzzler to me. Arif, what would you do?
I don't think that the defensive end, or I guess edge rusher depth, is there. I do not trust DJ Wonnum or Patrick Jones to take the leap. I'm keeping Za'Darius. To me, there's 3 players that have underproduced. They are Eric Kendricks, Dalvin Cook, and Adam Thielen. I love Eric Kendricks. I would not want to cut him, but this scenario requires that you cut 3, and there are 3 players that underproduced. Those are the 3 that go in the chopping block. I know that we have to take cap into account, and sure, I'm willing to do that. Danielle Hunter obviously is a lock in that scenario, kind of regardless. But Za'Darius Smith, freeing up $13 million, what are you going to do with that? Get another Za'Darius Smith? That's the goal if you cut him, right? And you might as well just keep Za'Darius Smith at that point in hopes that you save 13. It's, what's in the box. It could be another boat. I don't want to do that. I know what I have in Za'Darius Smith. He's good. He's worth the extra 13 million to keep or cut, right? So for me, it's easy. Harrison Smith, yeah, you save 8. Again, the goal is to get somebody as good as Harrison Smith. And I don't mean 2017, 2019 Harrison Smith. I mean 2022 Harrison Smith. It would be tough to find that even then. So, I view the players that I'm cutting as having production. This is not talent, production that is potentially replaceable. Now, remember, I've defended Thielen all season in terms of the way that he's played, how often he gets open, and how he does when he's targeted. I do think that Eric Kendricks is not at the end of his career. I do think that he has been put into a bad position and that he can play well with the right defensive coordinator. I almost refuse to believe that he has dropped off this egregiously, but there are athleticism concerns. I am just going to take the guys that produced well. That seems very simple to me. So, yeah, you could save $3 million here, $8 million here, but that's what I'm doing.
So you're keeping Smith, and Hunter, correct? And I have the exact same logic as you, Arif. Luke Braun, are you on Arif's side? Are you on Luke's side or a different side?
I think I'm on the same 3 people. Yeah, the Danielle Hunter thing, especially if we can't do clever cap stuff, that's obviously you kind of have to keep him because it doesn't even save you money in 2023. Za'Darius Smith is the single guy on here that can save you the most money. But like Arif kind of said, that money doesn't replace him. That isn't a profitable move, even though it saves you the most raw cash. The rule about not being able to do clever cap things is a bummer because both Harrison Smith and Adam Thielen's contract, the way I look at them, they seem like they are designed to go back to the negotiating table this offseason and see what happens. So if the options are cut or keep, that kind of goes against the design of all of it. And Unfortunately, cutting those guys doesn't save you all that much money. You save 6.5 with Thielen, and you save about 7.5 with Harrison Smith. You save almost 7.9 with Dalvin Cook. So I'll cut Dalvin Cook. I will cry and cut Eric Kendricks. I hate that. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But perhaps he can go somewhere where he
his talents are appreciated
on the defense. Yeah. And that kind of leaves me choosing between Harrison Smith and Adam Thielen on sort of the same,
very similar.
Yeah, sort of the same cap number, and it's just kind of which player would I rather keep. And I think with the way that those rooms are constructed, I would rather keep Harrison Smith. So yeah, I'm on the same 3 guys.
Yeah. So we're keeping the defensive vets who seem to have something left in the tank. And we are getting rid of, generally, except for Luke, we're getting rid of Dalvin and Thielen. And to be honest, I don't know how much it weakens the offense. Like, I think offense would continue, I think, at about 85% capacity before replacing those bodies. And then you find replacements, and I think it gets it up to 90. Like, I think it's a small drop.
Yeah, you could even potentially upgrade. I mean, let's not, again, I think Thielen is done well, but I think that it is possible for you to come out of that process at 105% instead of 90%. Like I don't think that that's outside the realm of possibility, especially what we saw at the end of the season with KJ Osborne, because you could just say, hey, KJ Osborne's going to replace Thielen. Now we just need to replace KJ Osborne. That's like an easier task.
This is the 3rd time I will have quoted this stat on Locked On Sports Minnesota this week, but I just want to tell Luke and Reef because I think it's interesting. Dalvin Cook's 8-man box percentage went from 30% Jefferson's rookie year to 26% the next year to 19% this year. So in theory, he should have gotten more and more efficient, and instead got less
effect
and less efficient with a negative yards over expected this year.
So the yards over expected is a salient point, but I'll say this about that. I don't know how much of that is the Justin Jefferson effect so much as the Kevin O'Connell effect. Not only does he pass much more often than Mike Zimmer offenses do, but they put 3 wide receivers on the field more often, so you're less likely to match with the linebacker, and they spread out the offense more often, so you're less likely to have your overhang defender inside the box, so you're not going to have 8 in the box there. And running back efficiency is generally dictated by +1, -1 in terms of blockers rather than the number of defenders. So if you have 8 in the box and 8 blockers, you're fine. If you have 8 in the box and 7 blockers, you've got a problem. And so that is kind of, but like rush yards over expected from next gen does take all that into account. So the fact that his efficiency plummeted, which I would argue is independent of that, is worth noting.
I did also crunch his missed tackles forced per touch because I felt like it was much worse this year, and actually it wasn't. It was like right on par with the year before.
Sam, what was his yards over expected the previous 2 years as well? Like Jefferson's rookie year's first year, and then you said it was in the negative this year. Was that a noticeable drop-off? Was that a slight, subtle drop-off? Was it kind of similar?
Well, he's never been negative before, so it was definitely a career low. I can't remember top of head like how significant the drop was, but I think it was.
He was near the bottom in the league in yards over expected this year, right? If not dead last.
Yep. Yeah, he was bottom 10 for sure. For sure. Okay, quick on-air production meeting. We're going to talk Pettine. We're going to talk nerdy stat of the day. Ron Johnson needs a quick in-and-out interview. Arif will take his little call that he has, and then we will have our underwhelming Vikings draft. All right, before I tell you why Mike Pettine is not a terrible choice for Vikings defensive coordinator, I'm going to tell you about FanDuel and our new betting partner, the Locked On Network. They are one of the top sports books in the world. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. And this is how you get started at FanDuel. Make your account, make a $5 bet, get $150 in free bets guaranteed. Sign up at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all your favorite bets, money lines, point spreads, player props, same game parlays. We'll be making a $500 parlay at the very end of the show. So check it out on their app. Safe, secure, easy to use. Remember, $5 bet, get $150 at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more. Guys, I don't think any of you would agree with this, but I don't think Mike Pettine is a horrible choice. I've talked myself into Mike Pettine as an internal hire. Here's why. Tell me why I'm wrong. Seems like a courtesy interview on the surface, but I'm not going to devalue the continuity aspect because he knows the personnel that he's worked with for 1 year. So I think that's a plus for him. Even though he might have been part of the problem with Donatel, I'm still going to put a lot of that on Donatel. Mike Pettine, 7 out of 10 years as an HC or a DC, had a top 10 pass defense, which obviously that needs the most fixing on the Vikings. And the other 2 of those other 3 years, they were 12th and 14th. So always in the top half, almost the top 10. Pettine was let go from Green Bay in part because he was not LaFleur's guy. Not necessarily because he was a bad defensive coordinator. LaFleur just wanted his guy. Pettine's defenses in Green Bay were 9th and 13th. Now, there was a little bit of criticism from LaFleur about how loose his coverage was. Sound familiar? So that's maybe a red flag. But he was a huge upgrade from Dom Capers. I don't hate Mike Pettine. Why should I not like Mike Pettine? Is it because he's in-house? Is it because he was in the building? He has the stench of Ed Donatel? Luke Braun, tell me why I'm wrong.
I went over this at length on Locked On Vikings today. Yeah, a little bit. It's, I guess my question about Mike Pettine is, what problem does this solve? And if your argument is, well, it makes the coverage better, then I guess that would be the pitch. But if
that's a good argument. What?
But I don't believe it.
Okay. I was just like, it's a weird thing to dismiss, is what I was just getting at. That's what it sounded like.
Well, I was getting there. I don't believe that he will fix the coverage because the problem with the coverage is the same problem that Pettine coverages had. And yeah, there is a little bit of, unless your argument is that Ed Donatel specifically was the issue inside the defensive room and everybody else in that defensive room was doing just fine, which I think is a little too charitable to everybody else in that defensive room. I kind of feel like, yeah, there is a little bit of blame for Mike Pettine. I get that he's very close to Kevin O'Connell and kind of a mentor to Kevin O'Connell, but I do not think that this solves enough problems.
Okay. I don't really view it as like problem solution in the same way. Like, to me, it's just, will it improve the defense or not? And obviously you want to balance that against the potential other candidates, but there are like some pretty interesting circumstances, right? With like looking at Mike Pettine defenses. So for example, the 2013 Buffalo Bills were like 20th in points allowed. They were 4th in DVOA. They had an all-time awful offense headed up by EJ Manuel, gave them awful field position, terrible turnover luck, right? 4th in DVOA. Right. These are pretty good defenses, generally speaking. I think the 2018 Green Bay Packers defense was not great, but I think the following 2 defenses in DVOA, which is a loose approximation of EPA, were in the top half. Right. Generally speaking, he has not coordinated bad defenses. I don't count the head coach years because he wasn't calling plays for Cleveland. I don't think he was that involved. So I don't really like, there's a huge negative reputation for him based off of, quote unquote, what happened in Green Bay, which I find interesting because Green Bay has just not found a defensive coordinator over like the past 7 years. Like, they just haven't been good on defense. And like, at what point are we going to assign that completely to a defensive coordinator? If you want to dismiss the early years with the New York Jets or Baltimore just because of how talented those units were, that's fine. But I think that like uncovering a lot of that Buffalo Bills defense, like Nigel Bradham and Aaron Searcy and Jairus Byrd, who did not succeed anywhere else, by the way, got a huge contract in New Orleans, did not succeed anywhere else, right? That defense was good. It was really good. Like Kyle Williams, Marcel Darius, like, it was a good defense, right? And a lot of that defense was not good before he arrived, which is why he got a head coaching job immediately afterwards. I'm not promising that he would be a good defensive coordinator. I just don't understand why there's a negative reputation attached to him as a DC. Like it doesn't make sense to me.
And I think too, knowing what happened to his predecessor, it's not as if Pettine is going to say, all right, run it back, guys. Same thing we learned last year. Let's do it. There's obviously going to be
flexible in his coverages. Like you take a look at what he did with the Jets, like a very, very much. I mean, having Darrelle Revis is like a really, but like very much like blitz heavy man coverage type stuff. With the Buffalo Bills, it was a little bit different. They did do a lot of cover one, but it wasn't nearly as blitz heavy. They mixed coverages a fair amount. Green Bay was a lot of cover 3, cover 6 stuff. Like they're all different coverages. Like, I don't know why he would necessarily be married to a coverage type. Now, obviously, Kevin O'Connell has a preference for what he wants the pre-snap look to look like, which is going to dictate to some level what kind of coverages you're capable of running, because that's where your players are just going to start the snap off at. But he seems like he's flexible enough to adapt the coverage to the players that he has based off of his history as a defensive coordinator. Like, I don't know. The objections that I have seen, and I have not searched for them, so I maybe haven't seen a lot of them, to Mike Pettine seem to largely be objections to like what he did in Green Bay, which is like, well, the people before him, the people after him didn't do well either. What Donatell does, which is like not historically all that related to what Mike Pettine has done. So I don't know, man.
Here's Pettine's DVOA defenses. Like you said, started out red hot with the Jets, Rex Ryan, Darrelle Revis, great defense. So if you want to put an asterisk by that, you can. But first 6,
just run man coverage. You got Antonio Cromartie and Darrelle Revis.
What are we doing?
Do it. Yeah.
And then, as Arif mentioned, the 2013 Bills defensive coordinator, 4th DVOA in the league. And then with the Packers, 29th, and then a big leap forward, but still middle of the pack, 15th, and then 17th in 2019 and 2020. So started out red hot. The Bills year, I'm with Arif. The Bills year really sticks out to you with what he did with that player personnel. I would prefer a fresh approach. Brian Flores seems to be the big buzz name. I would love it. You go get him 1 or 2 legit corners. Desai, you guys kind of talked me into that. Arif, your breakdown on him, what he could do with just our player personnel with that background, possibly introducing more of a hybrid 4-3-3-4, maximizing whatever players they do best. I was really intrigued with that. I do understand your guys' point as far as like, he's not as stubborn as maybe people are making it sound. And he did show some flexibility this year. And to your point, Sam, like, he's not just going to run it back, copy and paste. All right, let's try it again. All right, it's going to be different this time with less defensive veterans on the team this time around. Right. So I get it. I would like to start fresh, start clean, new approach, especially the options out there. I'm intrigued again by Flores and Desai, but I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world, like a lot of people are making it sound, if they did run it back.
Yeah. How do we know that Brian Flores would be good? Like, I genuinely don't. I don't think
we know that any of these guys would be good. That's why I'm trying to approach it as like, okay, what is the strategy that it represents, and do I like that strategy? But I don't know.
It's just like there's differing levels of excitement about a bunch of these names, and it just feels like there's very little information that would tell us very much about how these people would perform.
Well, I mean, if we're going off the DVOA with Pettine, then we can go off the DVOA with Flores. It was 11th and 10th in Miami.
He's like the head coach,
2021.
Right? Like he wasn't calling plays, right? Yeah, Pettine has the most information, and it is somewhat conflicting. I would argue generally positive, but somewhat conflicting. But it's just like people are really excited about Desai, and Luke, I did sell you a little bit on that just because of kind of the history of the way that those fronts can work. And then people are excited about Brian Flores, and it's just like, well, I don't like. He was a linebackers coach in New England, right? Which, like, I'm excited about Gerard Mayo, linebackers coach, but I know that Gerard Mayo was the defensive coordinator there. Like, that's kind of a difference, even though he's a linebackers coach. Like, was Brian Flores also the defensive coordinator? I don't think he was the New England Patriots, right? And I don't think he called plays for the Miami Dolphins. So, like, it's not that I think he'd be bad. Just like with Ryan Nielsen, I have no idea what this would represent. It's more, I find the enthusiasm for a lot of these guys really interesting because there's just not much. Like, to me, it's more I'm open to kind of whatever's going to happen here. I could just as easily see it being good as bad. And a lot of people are like, yeah, Brian Flores, he's a really great defensive mind. And it's like, is he? How do you know?
He took over play calling in week 10, it says, versus the Ravens. Second half of the season. He took over from there on out.
I definitely understand that. And like, these guys represent huge unknowns, which is why any take I'm going to have on them is going to be like very softly held. But I'm definitely sympathetic to Vikings fans who don't want to hire an in-house candidate like 10 days after the defense single-handedly destroyed a 13-4 season.
Okay, hold up. The first 9 games.
I just filtered the Miami weeks. So from weeks 11 to 17, it was 21st in defensive DVOA
in 2021.
That's 2020.
So the first 9 games, they ranked 32nd in yards allowed per game, 31st in third down conversion, and 29th in points allowed. So basically dead last, bottom 3 in all those categories. After he took over, 16th in yards allowed, 19th in third down conversion, 15th in points allowed. So huge drastic change the second half of the season.
Good.
It's pretty
yards
good.
Yards allowed is a fake stat.
I think that should be your nerdy stat of the day. That should be your nerdy stat of the day, Luke.
Analytics fans rejoice. It's time to get educated.
Whoa, you're blowing my mind right now.
With the nerdy stat of the day.
So did you say 2020 or 2021?
2021.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he jumped from 26th to 20th in DVOA.
Okay.
Nice.
Hire him. He's a lock.
I mean, also like mid-season changes, like whatever, you don't get the chance to install your own defense. So
yeah.
Again, to me, that's very little information.
All right, Ron Johnson comes up in a few minutes. Hey, send or leave a comment. Do you want Mike Pettine as your DC? Yes or no? Let me know. You can rip me if you want. I'm Team Pettine. This is kind of a juicy, nerdy stat. I actually had to dig on this. So Kirk Cousins' deep passing with one of the greatest wide receiver seasons in NFL history. His deep passing went from a 120.7 rating in 2021 to a 79.4 rating in 2022. Lowest Kirk Cousins deep rating since his first year as a starter in virtually the same number of attempts. He had 6 picks when throwing deep. And that correlated with his worst ever play action season.
I was about to say, I bet a lot of that has to do with the play action proportions.
Lowest play action passer rating of his career, 99.5. And I put in my notes, correlation, question mark.
I would imagine there is. Also, a lot of the Vikings play action this last year was not on bootlegs, which is like, he's crazy good at bootlegs. So I think that is probably something to do with it. A lot of it's probably noise because it's a low frequency statistic. I wouldn't be shocked if like a turnover worthy play rate was similar, but defense backs just held on to the ball a little bit more, that kind of stuff. But that is pretty interesting. I don't know. It could be very meaningful. It might not be very meaningful. But it might explain the drop-off in efficiency that Cousins had this year from play to play. So,
well, it also happened in a year where the large sample size statistics for Cousins were also down. So you're looking at really a decline for him across the board.
Yeah, there's probably a confounding variable throughout. Yeah,
yeah, and then the game-winning drives were just off the charts, crazy good. So that's mine nerdy stat of the day. Who else?
I'll go right before I have to just head out for half a second.
Yep.
So was it a Monday show? Luke mentioned that the Vikings were very good at tackling. They had a low missed tackle rate. I wanted to check on that. Luke, it turns out you were even more right than I think you thought. So the Vikings had the 4th lowest missed tackle rate, right, in the NFL on attempted tackles, right? But what was interesting to me was whether or not they would be able to do that on passing plays, because the context of the discussion was about whether or not they could stop, potentially the San Francisco 49ers offense. I still don't think so. But to your point about tackling, they were first in the NFL on tackling on pass plays in terms of tackling percentage, right? So pretty great. We know that Patrick Peterson's a good tackler, but it was pretty nice to see that on passing plays, they could at least tackle. So there's my
that's interesting. That's good to know.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Thanks, Arif. I know you have to bow out for just a moment. We'll talk to you in a few minutes for the underwhelming Vikings draft. Braun, nerdy?
Yeah, so Ben Baldwin just tweeted out as we're recording this rushing yards over expected thing, and I wanted to look at I'm very curious about that stat because I don't know a lot about it. In 15 rushes in that playoff game, Dalvin Cook had 74 expected yards, which he tweeted out a chart of all of the playoff running backs, which extrapolated if there had been a second game would have been one of the highest amounts in the league, which tells you that the Vikings run game was actually doing pretty good at opening up holes and stuff, at least according to that stat. I know it's like based off of handoff, like player positioning at handoff and like tracking data and stuff, which I have skepticisms about, but I don't know enough about it to really criticize. But what I think kind of surprised me was that the highest on this chart, at least in terms of expected rushing yards, is not somebody on a Kyle Shanahan offense or somebody on, the Baltimore Ravens. It is Joe Mixon on the Bengals. 141 expected rushing yards over 2 games. Some of that's a volume thing. I think he has more rushes on this chart than anybody else.
With that offensive line too. Oof. Wow.
And that offensive line killed the Bills.
No, they way overachieved. But
Cordell Volson.
The backups are actually better than
so far. Is that O-line versus the Bills D-line?
Mm-hmm.
So interesting stuff.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Inman, did you have another one in the holster?
The DVOA stuff. 6 of the final 8 teams last week all ranked in the top 6 in DVOA. The only 2 that didn't, Giants and Jags. They both obviously lost. The only kind of surprise, the 5th DVOA team, the Bengals, as Luke just mentioned, upset the number 1 DVOA team, the Bills. But just top to bottom, if you're a DVOA hater during the season at all, especially as like a Vikings fan, super hard to argue with those numbers equating to success when you just look at the final teams remaining. This week, you got San Fran, slight edge over the Eagles in DVOA by 2%, both ranked in the top 3, though. Chiefs and Cincy ranked 4 and 5, although the Chiefs have just over 5% better DVOA than the Bengals. And then just a reminder, the Vikings DVOA was 27th, only ahead of the Panthers, Cardinals, Chicago Bears, Houston Texans, and Indianapolis Colts. 4 of those 5 teams hold the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th overall picks this year. Panthers hold the 9th overall pick. So again, for better or worse, more times than not, DVOA, man, just wildly accurate this season, predicting team success.
Gosh, are the Vikings looking at a 7.5 win total over under?
Well, they're a 4-win team. Clearly, they don't do anything well, and there's no good players on it because of that.
Right.
I logged on to a website and looked up some numbers, and I know better. So I have one more I wanted to say because people need to hear it. Zadarius Smith and Danielle Hunter are the only edge duo in the league who are both in the top 10 in pressures total. And this is including postseason as well. Zadarius Smith 4th in pressures with 80. Danielle Hunter 6th in the league with 76, tied for 6th. The only person who can still leapfrog him reasonably is Hassan Reddick, who's still playing and is just one behind.
If that coverage had been even mediocre, like if it had just been mediocre, that defensive line, player for player, had such a good year. Tomlinson, Phillips, Zadarius, Hunter, Tonga, Odamewo, like a lot of guys played above average football. And as a group, it just felt like they couldn't make a real impact because the coverage was so bad. Make sure to check out...
Just real quick, going back to the first exercise, I didn't want to cut Zadarius Smith because of that fact that Luke mentioned. I know they were both in the top 10 in pressures. In that exercise, wanted to show a specific example. If you're just trying to save the most money, Zadarius saves you the most money without just sitting there with a bunch of dead caps sitting in your lap as well. Probably unrealistic that they would actually cut him, given how productive he was, especially when healthy the first half of the season. First 8 games, he was dominant. Maybe the best pass rusher in the entire NFL, honestly. Top 3. Just looking at the cap situation that Kwesi's facing, he would save you the most money with the least dead cap.
Yeah. He had an Everson Griffin-esque start to the season. Griffin, a notorious fast starter, and then a slower finisher. Zadarius had that, probably worn down with that injury, as he admitted. Make sure to check out Locked On Sports today. The biggest stories around the sports world in 20 minutes or less. Instant reactions, game recaps, Locked On's take of the day. Find it on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Once we get Ron Johnson in, I want to ask him which quarterback he would build a franchise around if he could today, Burrow or Hurts. Is there a conversation there, or do you think it's obvious one way or another? Ron's not here yet, but I'll start the convo. Luke Inman, you have a thought on that?
Sorry, I missed it. All I heard was Burrow and Hurts. What was the question?
Am I
breaking? Who would you build around? Who would you build a franchise around?
Who would I build around? Joe Burrow. I love him. I love it. Pure pocket guy. Here's the thing. Mobile quarterbacks scare the heck out of me when I'm building a team. For one game or 2-3 years, sure. But they just have a tendency, and history shows they will break down eventually. They're not as consistent. One thing that nobody gives Kirk Cousins credit for, guy never misses a game because he's never outside of the pocket. He doesn't take any big hits. You need durability at your quarterback position. Love what Jalen Hurts has done the last couple of years. His development just from last year to this year after they got him A.J. Brown, night and day, outstanding story for him. And I'm sure the Eagles pay him a monster contract and build around him for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But for me, Joe Burrow, pure pocket guy, I love everything about him. And I think he ticks a couple more boxes than Jalen Hurts outside of once you get past the mobility and the athleticism. Better pure pocket quarterback, in my opinion.
I wonder if that's not really a bad answer here.
No. I wonder if that changes, though, if Hurts wins the Super Bowl, which I think is a great possibility. What if he beats Burrow?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Be a good game.
Eagles-Bengals is going to be an awesome game. I think all 4 permutations are really fun, but I think that's the best game.
I think a lot of people are getting a little annoyed outside of Chiefs fans of watching the Kansas City Chiefs in the Final Four, top 2.
Speak for yourself.
You love it?
These are always great games.
No, they're great games for sure, but just for parity's sake.
Yeah.
Well, and I think look at what I'm arguing, Luke. It's like, well, the Bengals just went to the Super Bowl, dude. So what are you saying? You want the Super Bowl to run it back with the Bengals again?
I got
That's not funny either.
Really bored. I think after like 20 years of Manning, Brady, Roethlisberger, they got really bored. But all those guys were like pocket guys that sort of like responsibly would find the open guy and matriculate down the field, as it were. But Mahomes makes the incredible look mundane, and
he's an alien.
It's going to be a long time before I'm tired of watching that.
For sure. No, I get that. Just from a pure entertainment standpoint and fan of the game, how could you not love to watch Patrick Mahomes? For sure.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a bad answer here. If you gave me Burrow and said start a franchise, I'd think I was pretty lucky, but Hurts is very multiple in a way that the Eagles have done a great job of like taking advantage of. And I think that's why they're the best team in the NFC, right? Is because they have so many different pitches. They have so many different ways they can be. They can be an option team with Hurts. He can be a drop back quarterback if that's what the defense is giving you. He can do so many different things that kind of whatever team I want to build, I can build it around Hurts. And that flexibility makes me lean a little bit that way. But I don't think... Like I could see myself, 10 years after that experiment, I could see the Joe Burrow team being better on the whole. But that multiplicity is very attractive to me, I guess.
If Mahomes can play well, if he plays at all, and he plays well, like the guy is an alien.
It's almost like if he plays, he does play well. There's no question.
Yeah.
If he's on the field, he's playing well, and he is playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an alien.
That looked
unheard of.
That looked so painful. That was like such a bad injury.
Somebody threw up on my timeline highlights of the Bucs Chiefs Super Bowl, and it was like the amount of sacks that he was avoiding and then still getting passes off downfield in the corner of the end zone while he's being dragged to the ground were just insane. And it's almost like he lulls you to sleep because he just does it every game, almost once a drive kind of thing. It was just kind of mind-blowing to see that again. I kind of forgot about it.
Why don't we do our parlays? Let's get that rolling. Arif can join midway. But last week, we did a $500 parlay each. Luke, the lone winner. Congratulations. A Dak interception and Travis Kelce, like 6.5 receptions, and he had 14.
Dude, both my bets hit in like the first quarter. Kelce had like 6 catches in like the first 3 drives. It was nuts.
That was crazy. Luke Braun, why don't you lead us off?
So I'm going to go with double touchdown scorer this time. I'm just going to go with the 2 of the more likely guys, I think, and hope that it gives me good odds, which it does. I'm going with A.J. Brown and Joe Mixon. Going off of what I just said about the Bengals run game appears to really be setting him up for success, especially down in the goal line. They use him on the goal line plenty. And that A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts connection is one of the best in the league. That gives me plus 410.
Ron Johnson joins us now. He's at 3. Ron Johnson, the Ron Johnson Show host, Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, roundtable on Friday. Ron, we were just debating which quarterback would you want to build your franchise around right now, Joe Burrow or Jalen Hurts?
Oh, that's my only 2 options?
Yeah.
I'm going Kirk Cousins. No. Me personally, I mean, if you look at Jalen Hurts versus Joe Burrow, I personally would go Jalen Hurts. I like the way he gives you the ability to run. I feel like if I'm a coach and I can make it work, so you look at Patrick Mahomes, his ability to move. You look at Josh Allen, his ability to move. I think in today's football, long term, it's going to be more of value. Now, he did get a shoulder injury, but also Joe Burrow had the knee injury. But I'm going to go Jalen Hurts just because of the type of offense I would want to run. And as you look at, like, teams that can build around, the offensive line versus quarterback, which one is better? Is it the chicken or the egg? Is it I need to have a bunch of receivers and decent running backs, or do I need to have a great running back and a few receivers? At the end of the day, Jalen Hurts becomes an additional back. Now, I know, again, that shoulder, him taking hits might not be a long-term, 15-year situation. But if I'm going to build now where most owners are looking like, give me 7-8 years to try to get to a Super Bowl, I'm going to go Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, interesting. Luke Inman, what do you got for Ron Johnson?
Hey, Ron Johnson. Speaking of quarterbacks, just curious, your take on the quarterback carousel we could see take place this offseason. Last few years, we've seen a lot of big moves with teams trading like early draft picks for established superstars. With quarterbacks, though, where do you think guys like Rodgers, Brady, and Derek Carr all end up? Or where do you see the most kind of plausible fits there?
Well, first with Aaron Rodgers, I think everybody's trying to figure out the draft capital. Who would do it? Is it worth it? The Jets, it sounds like, are willing to leverage their entire future for 2 years with Aaron Rodgers, which I get it. When you've been that bad, but you feel like your window with this defense, these offensive weapons, you look at the players they have. They're going to get their running back next year. Breece Hall will be healthy. He came out the gate punching, swinging hard. So they're like, man, if we can just get a guy that can keep us in games, that can win games for us. Aaron Rodgers is that guy. Aaron Rodgers also wore green in Green Bay, so going to the Jets, he's not going to have to change much. I mean, he might have to throw away the yellow portion of his gloves and his cleats, but he'll still be able to use the green and white cleats. He'll be able to use the green socks, and so that's an easy transitional move. We look like a guy like Aaron Rodgers. Now, the Raiders and Aaron Rodgers, I mean, again, it's Las Vegas. I just don't personally feel like that's the way to go. I think if you look like a turnkey type of team, meaning defense is ready to go, running backs in place, offensive weapons are there, I'd say the Jets. When you look at Derek Carr and you look at these other guys, I mean, this has happened before in the NFL. It just doesn't happen this often where it's this many guys, but it's happened before. It's the fun part of it. I mean, honestly, this makes our jobs a lot more fun. Going into the offseason, we get to watch the trades and the talk all offseason. And, are the Packers going to become the worst team in the NFC North because, they don't have Aaron Rodgers anymore, which the answer is probably yes. I picked the Lions last year to be second in the division. If that happens, I think the Lions could win the division. I mean, I think the Lions have a chance to compete with the Vikings to win the NFC North for the first time since probably Barry Sanders, and I don't even know if they won it then. But I think that's the key when you think about this team and these quarterbacks. Sorry, this league, not this team. These quarterbacks in this league. I'm excited to see what happens. But I think the easiest one to kind of piggyback is Aaron Rodgers. I think he's going to be a Jet.
Mm-hmm. Ron, what do you got?
Well, now I'm curious. Rank who you would start a franchise with: Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Kirk Cousins.
Well, I'm going to go Jalen Hurts 1. I'm going to go Joe Burrow 2, and I'm going to go Kirk Cousins 3. I actually sat here this morning, and because I've been having this weird debate with a guy that I don't know what his problem is. He's like got a hard on for Shannon Sharp and Clinton Portis, and he's upset that, I'm backing guys like Portis and Ed Reed and Shannon Sharp. And I don't know why. He thinks he's holier than thou, and he's like, So I thought about that because I'm like, in sports takes, we all, stand our ground. And he tried to say, like, Stephen A. Smith needs to be humbled. I'm like, man, we're just doing a job. Like, we don't need to be humble when we're talking sports. Like, shut up. But when you think about Kirk Cousins, and I've taken that stance, I will say this about Kirk Cousins. He honestly doesn't have that it factor. And I think that's what a lot of people think he lacks, that it factor. Like, and it's not it's not something that you can go get. It's just in you. You have it. Like, some people walk out the gym or they walk onto the field and they have that it factor where the cameras are on them and they're just charismatic. They got the team handshake down. You know, you watch Joe Burrow warm up and you watch T. Higgins with Jamar Chase. I mean, even Justin Jefferson, they have it. Like, when the camera's rolling and it goes slow-mo, it's the coldest video you've ever seen. Kirk Cousins in slow-mo just reminds me of SpongeBob. Like, it's not going to be smooth. It's not going to be smooth and clean, and I think that's why so many people hold him back. Like, the Bengals last week had the coldest videos I've ever seen for pregame warm-ups. And so Pat Mahomes warming up, he's done it too. He's had the cool moments. He does the things with him and Travis Kelce. Some players just have it. And I think the Bengals had the coolest pregame videos ever by a social media team I've seen. But, you know, that's just not what you're going to see out of Kirk Cousins. And so that's why I think people are hesitant, even when he was at a young age. We're hesitant to say this is our franchise quarterback, or he should be a franchise quarterback, because it's not that it. So if I'm picking between those three, I got to go that route. But I think Kirk Cousins can get a franchise going. He's getting it going with the Vikings. How much longer does he have in the tank? I think that's going to be the question.
Well, it's going to be interesting this weekend, Ron. I think you went on record saying Eagles-Bengals is the likeliest matchup. Yep. But we'll get into more specific predictions tomorrow on the roundtable. Thanks a lot for joining, Ron.
No, appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Ron.
At 3Ron Johnson on Twitter, host of the Ron Johnson Show, Arif Hassan rejoins us for our underwhelming Vikings draft. These are the parameters, guys. I've got the last 5 drafts laid out for you in a nice little Excel spreadsheet. We're going to pick a 6-person team. I thought about putting positions assigned to it. I'm not going to do that. This is just names only. You can load up defense. You can load up offense. The reason being that there's just some positions where there's only a few guys, and it's a little hard to have like depth there. So just pick underwhelming Vikings and round out your 6-person team. Why don't we start with Luke Inman, because he's winning our parlay contest so far, and then we'll go around the circle.
Chief gambler.
Yep. Our big dog right now. He's winning the crown. Oh, yeah, and then we'll get back into our parlays after this. So, Luke Inman, kick us off the underwhelming Vikings draft.
The number 1 overall pick, 1-1, third rounder, Kellen Mond, quarterback.
I feel like you have to.
You have to, right? There is one other guy I'm thinking about, and I don't know if that was a Reefs 1-1. We were talking before the show, clear-cut guy. There is one other guy that maybe I was thinking about, but I'm not going to say his name quite yet.
Okay. Arif Hassan gets pick number 2.
Yeah, I want to be clear here. Before the show, I was talking about a guy that rocketed up my rankings, a guy I nailed in on as we clarified the nature of this draft. So this guy that I'm thinking of is not my 1-1, or I guess in this case 1-2. I'm preserving him for hopefully later. We'll see. But I'm picking the only, well, I guess maybe not the only, but I'm picking probably the most obvious first rounder to go here. I'm picking Mike Hughes. I just think the draft investment there versus the return. Obviously, he's better than a number of other players here in that he is still, I think, in the NFL. But, you know, that phrase, I think, is maybe telling.
He is. He was with the Lions last year. And I feel like he's kind of revitalized his career. But that's another way to interpret this. Like, underwhelming with the Vikings, yes. Underwhelming as an NFL pro, maybe not. Maybe he's actually had a better.
There's a reason the Chiefs cut him.
They like him in Detroit. Matt Derry told us that. Luke Braun, what do you think? Your first pick.
Wasn't Mike Hughes in coverage on the game-winning touchdown to KJ Osborne?
Yes, he was.
Hey,
toasted.
Hey. Interesting. Curious.
And Chiefs invested what? A 6th-round pick, 7th-round pick for Hughes, and still cut him? What?
And they're like, we'd rather draft Jalen Watson.
When Wyatt Davis got picked, a lot of people thought, there's your starting guard of the future.
Won some offensive lineman awards.
What? Yep. Never even got on the field. Cut as a 3rd rounder by year 2. Yikerinos. I'm taking Wyatt Davis.
Yikerinos indeed.
I would have probably gone with Davis had he been available to me. But I will go with the next best overhyped guard, and that is Drew Samia. He should have been a second-round pick. The Vikings got a steal. Done. Year
Love
2.
It. Love it.
And I will follow that up on the return with Chaz Surratt, another
there you go.
third-round pick.
Good pick. Good pick.
That was my decision. I was waffling between those two.
In
Top
the
five
league.
is getting obliterated here.
I don't know if he's in the league. Luke Braun, you pick next.
Chaz Surratt, he was in the NFL last year, but I believe he was on a practice squad. So if you count that,
Practice squad quarterback, maybe.
Goodness me.
What do you got, bud? You got
Well,
pal?
now I'm all thrown off. I was really hoping Chaz Surratt would come.
You gotta have a plan in your draft, man.
Plan B, Plan C.
Yeah.
Planning on this show? No.
Rick Spielman has 250 scenarios he's already gone through at this point.
And well, 3 of his last draft picks are already on the board in the first two days.
Yeah, and you're behind his 8 ball? Man, rough.
That's why I don't get paid the big bucks. I'll go with Jalen Holmes.
I don't know, man. Jalen Holmes is on my list, but he's kind of low on the list. That's an interesting one.
I'm scrambling.
He didn't feel hyped to me. So we have had.
He was supposed to be the guy that he was just stuck behind Nick Bosa. He's really just another Ohio State guy. We got another. He just couldn't get reps.
That feels like something that was said only during the draft. I don't feel like people hyped like Drew Samia was hyped the entire time.
I don't remember any Drew Samia hype.
Before
all I remember is the memes after he got crushed by DeForest Buckner. But maybe
we were mocking Drew Samia all February, all really? March.
Yeah.
Vikings only mocks. Yeah.
All right. I'm still gonna save my guy. I actually, given the nature of everybody's picks so far, I don't know if my guy's gonna get a bounce back to me, but still gonna save my guy, and I'm gonna go with the other Ohio State lineman and also a first-round pick. And Garrett Bradbury. Yeah, he started 4 years, but is anyone happy about that?
Ohio State?
North Carolina State.
North Carolina State. Sorry, I was thinking of Pat Elflein.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Nope. Elflein would have went 1-1 in this draft.
Yeah.
God. I was thinking about Bradbury for sure. I'll go the next guy in line. Irv Smith, you passed up on AJ Brown.
Look at that.
AJ Brown, 1 pick later. Irv Smith, a lot of hype. Alabama. Finally get a tight end after post Kyle Rudolph era. And then I'm going to go with, just because it's starting to get thin here. Boy, this is tricky.
Yeah, it is.
I'm going to go with Daniel Carlson.
That is a very interesting pick.
That is
now, that could go either way. Obviously, he's maybe the best kicker in the league, arguably outside of Justin Tucker, right? But here in Minnesota, and maybe that makes it even worse seeing him flourish.
I mean, if this was a feels bad man draft, yeah, certainly.
Right.
But
I like the pick.
If there is a polarizing pick in this draft, well, aside from one obvious one that I'm definitely not picking.
Who's going to do it?
But if there's a polarizing pick in this draft, it's probably Daniel Carlson, because that really invites a lot of debate about what it means to be underwhelming.
Definitely.
Which, by the way, no criteria. Sam has not set a criteria for what it means. This is a vibes draft.
Right.
Anyway, it's me, right?
It's you.
My guy is still there.
You're the problem.
I am the problem. I am drafting Austin Cutting, long snapper.
Wow.
Let's go, baby.
Value.
Oh.
There was so much made about his, what was it, Air Force?
Perfect. Yeah.
Air Force.
Perfect. But PFF said he was perfect as a long snapper. He didn't have one snap wrong his senior year. And I think he had one in his entire career that went wrong, and his Senior Bowl. Let PFF Sam tell you about his Senior Bowl.
Oh, my
He
God.
took down Dan Bailey's career in 2020, literally, single-handedly.
Austin Cut.
Austin Cut.
God, that's good. That's great.
Very, very good. Luke Braun.
I'm thinking about being that guy.
Oh, I would love it. I would hate for you to be more hateable. Oh.
Would I get in trouble? Look. I can't do it.
It's tough.
I don't think I have it in me.
It's tough.
Dude, I mean, you could just defend yourself and say it's all between the lines here. We're just talking about.
Yep.
But you can't do that on the poll, right?
No, you can't.
That won't get me votes.
I'm just saying what you could say on the show. That's all I'm saying.
This isn't like a ballot measure where you get a little paragraph.
You have to take it to the judge, and the judge says that's the bad language. You got to redo it, and you got to do.
Is he better value as a 6th round pick than a 3rd round pick?
That's maybe. At a certain point, maybe you just kind of throw him in.
Yeah, there's not a ton of players.
I'm gonna go with Olabisi Johnson.
What?
People said he was going to be wide receiver 2. There was a moment,
and he still might be if Justin Jefferson wasn't the greatest receiver in the NFL.
But factually, he was, right. Like he was wide receiver 2 at the beginning of 2 separate seasons. You to tell me a 7th round pick is going to do that on a regular basis?
Picks in. It's already in. Cards in.
Picks in.
Commissioner said it. It's over.
Talk about a guy who absolutely overperformed his draft slot. My God.
I'm going to be honest.
I thought
Picks
he did
in.
a great
I'm not going to take it back, but Dylan Mitchell and it just got him mixed up.
You mixed him up with Dylan Mitchell?
Oh, that's hilarious.
That you can put in the tweet. That will let you put in the tweet.
Nope. It's okay. It's all right. I screwed up. I put in the wrong pick.
I was in my brain.
Was it the Ravens that did that? Didn't that happen?
They got the wrong player?
Yeah, it was like the name got wrong.
It happened on it happened famously on The Bachelor one time. The Bachelor called the wrong girl at the rose ceremony.
Well,
was it binding?
Didn't
yes. It feels like a show that's loose with rules. Okay.
Steve Harvey announced the wrong Miss America.
Miss Universe or
Miss Universe.
Oh yeah.
And it's like it's Steve Harvey, so he's joking, right? Classic Harvey.
Classic.
Good one, man.
Apparently this was a design issue with the way the card was written.
Right. Or how about at the Oscars when the guy read the wrong picture of the year?
Moonlight.
Yeah. Ooh, rough.
Rough, dude.
Wait, whose pick is it?
My pick, Janarius Robinson.
That's all right.
There's a lot of hype for that. It's slim pickings now, man. So I actually like that.
It is slim pickings.
He would have been on my radar for sure. I actually like that.
Yeah, I feel like the controversy gets really ratcheted up now. So the 2020 draft was not good, and
but it wasn't
they're all sitting there.
Bad. Right. Yeah, like it's
right. Like
Dan still on the team.
Like
so we got to get through 2021.
Like, who you taking Brandel or special teams captain Josh Metellus? Like it's tough.
Oh yeah, no one is picking Brandel or Metellus.
No,
that's for
sure.
We're Osborne.
What I mean is, by all means, go ahead and pick them.
Yeah. I'm going Wanham.
I get it.
A lot of hype. A lot of hype.
He is on my short list, not at the top of my short list, but I definitely get it.
Mm-hmm.
Back to Brun.
Boy, oh boy, was there a lot of Zach Davidson hype.
Dang, good
pick. Sniped.
Good pick.
All right, I'm gonna go with a probably pretty spicy one. Given that there's just not enough time, I'm gonna go with Andrew Booth.
Yeah, that's a good one. If he was there at the end, I would have had to pick him. I would have had to. For me,
it was like heading into Sam's first pick on the turnaround, it was like Zach Davidson 1, Andrew Booth 2.
Yeah.
I was really hoping for Davidson.
And even when he was healthy and on the field, he didn't necessarily wow anybody either.
It definitely feels super unfair, but we are running out of space.
We're running out. All right, I'm going to go with Amir Smith-Marset. A lot of hype around him for a little bit. And then I'm going to go with Troy Dye. I don't know if it was just me hyping him up a little bit.
No, I think that's fair. Troy Dye was on my list. And Amir Smith-Marset was not on my list, but I was just thinking about it in terms of like as a draft prospect, but as a future Viking, which is probably the best way to evaluate this.
Right.
Insane amounts of hype.
Totally. Every training camp. MVP. Yeah. Offensive MVP.
All two of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's on.
Okay. We are running. Oh, man. Well, if we're going after these guys, I've got a couple of guys in mind, but I think the one that drew maybe some of the most discussion, I guess, Jalen Twyman. I'm going to go Jalen Twyman.
I mean, that's Gladney-esque, if we're being honest. It's not there. It's not there. They're different.
It's definitely not there. but he had a full
he had his
healthy
chance.
It's in the same universe.
He had a healthy season.
Yeah,
it's in the same universe. I get it.
He had his
and he
chance,
did have a healthy
and
season, and he had his
a
chance.
lot of people called him a young Aaron Donald, which was a lot.
That is like very specific.
Are you sure it wasn't just that he like hung out with Aaron Donald?
Yeah, he also hero worshipped Aaron Donald, but people did call him that.
Yeah, like the idea was like, oh, he just tanked the combine because he did his weight wrong and stuff, and he's actually a lot better than this, and we really got a steal and couldn't stick.
Well, here's the thing about that. There's no guarantee you're getting it back. If a player screws up the way they put on weight, no guarantee you're getting it back.
He is the guy that taught me that lesson. Because I fell for it.
Yeah, but you could be right that he'd handled his training incorrectly, and I think that we were right about that. Doesn't mean he's going to get it back.
Yeah. Well, I think I already torpedoed mine with the BC mistake, so I'll just be the guy that falls on the grenade. I'll take Jeff Gladney.
Oh.
I need the sicko vote.
Gosh, monster. You monster.
Yep. Well, let me ask you that. Like, how much time needs to go by until we have a draft and it's okay to take Jeff Gladney? Like, nobody goes, oh, dude, that's messed up.
No, there's no amount of time.
Yeah.
No amount of time.
The Vikings really whiffed on Kenichi Udeze. Really?
Dude, Ray Caruth. All right.
That's different. That's his fault. That's different.
You're right. No, you're actually right. I get it now. I get the difference. I get it.
I will say, between the white lines, this does make sense. He was pretty bad in the only year we had.
That's why I said you could justify it. But, you don't get to say that in the poll.
Nope.
All right, guys. I'm going to take bronze guy, Dylan Mitchell.
Well, you were a big Dylan Mitchell guy. I remember that.
Me?
Yeah.
No, I was a who's the UDFA?
Oh,
from UAB. Davion Davis.
Yeah.
Davion Davis was my guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this will ruffle feathers, but Cam Dantzler.
That was my guy.
I was really thinking about it.
So it doesn't ruffle feathers on this podcast at least, but it may on Twitter.
Yeah.
But he was my guy. I was going after him.
And that's mainly because of what happened this year.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah. Braun.
I don't agree with this, but in chasing the votes of people who are upset, I'm taking Lewis Cine.
I knew it. In for a penny, in for a pound.
Earth.
Yep.
This is wild. Wild.
I'm throwing Hail Marys.
And laterals. You're doing the Cowboys final play.
Yeah, well, I was thinking more the Patriots final play, and he's Mac Jones.
Yeah,
no, it's the Patriot, it's the Miami Miracle, and Braun is Gronkowski. Trying to stop
no, because I'm not in a good position to begin with.
He has no angle.
Yeah,
he has no angle.
I don't have win probability here.
Man, there's okay. So I complained the entire show about the thinness here, but now there's just so many people with even value. I almost want like another. This is tough.
Right.
This is tough.
Yeah.
Clock's up. Sam, you're on.
No, it's fault.
You missed out on the free agent.
I thought the fax machine was what was it, Elvis Dumerville?
Yeah.
In that case, the fax machine wasn't working in favor of the Ravens, but the Ravens did not get the trade in.
Right.
I'm going to assume because of the fax machine error.
Do we think it was the same fax machine?
No, because unless the Ravens gifted it to Denver.
It was Denver's fax machine.
It was Denver's fax machine that made it possible for the Ravens to grab Elvis Dumerville, giving them some sort of karmic whatever. I don't know. The Ravens also benefited from not getting that trade in, so I don't know. But, whole fax machine cycle. Anyway, so I don't want to give out my other name just because I don't want someone to pick it, right? Or I guess the one person to pick it. But yeah, both of the guys on my list are linemen, and I had a guy in mind the whole draft. I've changed my mind at the last second. I'm going to go with the guy everybody was actually cheering for, which makes sense here, Kenny Willekes.
Three-time captain.
It's supposed to be like a third-round pick.
Yeah. Was accused of being unathletic simply because he did poorly in every combine test, merely for that fact.
That's it.
And then he did a bunch of somersaults, and that convinced a bunch of general managers of nothing at all.
True. All right, Oli Udoh or Ed Ingram. I thought about Nate Stanley just because everybody hypes up a quarterback. Even if we draft him in the 7th round or UDFA, we always hype him up into training camp. I'm going to go Oli Udoh. Even though he's a late pick, boy, we hyped him up quite a bit. Long, wingspan crazy, got the prototypical size and strength coming from Elon. He's a project, guys, but just give it a few years.
This is after you retweeted Kraserific saying, he's actually been pretty good at tackle.
I did, yeah. Don't attach that to this poll, please. Don't do that to me. I could have went with Ed Ingram. I almost went with Ed Ingram.
Ed Ingram would have been that because I had already gotten Booth. I was like, well, if I'm going in on rookies,
right. And
I
Ed
like
Ingram,
Udoh.
pretty bad this year, but I'm going with Udoh. Mr. Irrelevant. There it is. Lock it up. Fun draft, Sam. That was a lot of fun.
It was. So
I have some regrets.
I got ripped in the comments last week for being too much of a stickler on time. And as a result, I have gone way past an hour. So you can be happy with me. We do need to finalize our parlays. Hopefully we can get through it very fast.
I got mine. Here, I'll rip it out here real quick. I'm going to go Jalen Hurts over 48 rushing yards.
God!
Minus at 114. And can I double down and take Jalen Hurts over 9 carries at minus 186?
Does it let you on the bet slip?
It does for me, yeah.
Yeah, it's same game parlay. So it's Hurts what? What's the second one?
9 carries or more, over under 8.5 at minus 186.
So I cannot repeat a player prop, right? That,
Luke said that it worked for him.
No, I can't.
You can't say like Jalen Hurts over rushing.
That's correct.
I put that on my bet slip. Oh God.
So Inman, I need the final odds.
Plus 135.
Okay, and Braun, back to yours. And Arif, for the record, Braun said Brown and Mixon touchdowns. Was that first touchdown or anytime?
Anytime.
All right. Arif?
All right. I'm so upset. Okay, hold on.
Do you get rattled and you make mistakes when you get sniped, all right? It happens.
I got sniped 3 times in the draft. I had a perfect draft. Geez. Okay, I don't like that. Okay, I'm going to go in the same game. Anytime touchdown scorer, Jerick McKinnon, along with my original pick of Brandon Ayuk over 3.5 total receptions. That produces a plus 368.
All right. Yeah, you guys have like smart, balanced, kind of sensible, 2-leg parlays. I'm not about that life.
Like a plus 1,000?
I'm doing 4 anytime touchdown scorers.
Wait, you can do 4?
You can do whatever you want. It's a $500 parlay.
No. Huh. For some reason, I thought we were just restricted to 2.
Oh, no. Wild West.
No.
George Kittle, Devontae Smith, T. Higgins, and my wild card, Noah Gray.
So all of them scoring touchdowns?
Let's go.
Yep.
What?
Yep. Noah Gray. Sure. It's going to be a tight end game for Kansas City. Not a lot of dropbacks. Tight ends are going to be involved. I like Noah Gray because he plays like consistently over half the game. He's going to get a couple passes. Plus 12,998.
All right, so it was Higgins, Gray, Kittle, and who?
Devontae Smith.
Okay.
I would roll with Trent Irwin before I'd roll with Noah Gray, but good luck to you. I feel like if you'd rather, I have a better option. You just give me the money. I take you out back, kick you in the nuts. We call it
a day. No, you guys are going to be. You guys are in for it. This is going to play. So plus 13,000.
Yeah,
130 to 1. Right? Yeah.
Sure.
Huge. I like it. It's great.
They're giving you bad odds on this, but that's fine.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Those are 3 pretty likely touchdown scorers, and then Gray is obviously not. But
what happens if you take Gray out?
The problem is that
what are the odds
they interact with each other's touchdown probabilities.
Right.
And the same game parlay is not giving you that.
Right.
Like it's not
like if one gets a touchdown, the other guy's less likely to get it. Right.
And so that's why you're getting bad odds. But you've already locked it in, so cool.
And I'm totally good with that.
Yeah.
All right. That was fun, fellas.
That was fun.
Minnesota Football Party. Subscribe on YouTube, Locked On Sports Minnesota. Free and available in your favorite podcast app. Luke Enman, Luke Braun, Arif Hassan, myself. The roundtable tomorrow with Ron Johnson on Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's the Minnesota Football Party. Thanks for watching.